Hello everyone, this is Curtis Eckerman and welcome back. In this video we're going to work on our course content, and the course content is going to be the meat of our Blackboard site, because this is where we're going to store the videos, lectures, notes, assignments, tests. We're essentially going to deliver the course in the course content. So let's get started. If I had started out the semester trying to develop an online course or hybrid course, then I would want to set up my course content as follows. I would want to have a module unit overview, objectives, a learning guide, and these would be considered the essential things that I would want to include in my course. But I would also include in my course content the notes and things that my students would need to look at and to listen to under the read and watch section. I would also want something like a discussion assignment, a normal module assignment, maybe some quizzes, as well as an exam or a paper submission at the end. But of course, we're trying to build this in a hurry, and this class may not necessarily be originally designated as an online course, and you've probably met your students already face to face. So some of these things we're going to get rid of, and we're going to streamline this process because some of these can take some time. For instance, we're going to get rid of the module overview and the objectives. Now, of course, these are important parts to any course, but these presumably would be things that you've delivered in your course face-to-face or in your syllabus, and this takes some time to do this properly, and so we're going to eliminate them for now. We just want to get a learning guide up there with the materials that the students need to watch or look at, and then we're going to have a discussion, an assignment, and a test. And so if I were to look specifically at how I wanted to design this course, I'm going to create a module learning guide, a module lecture materials folder, which will contain some notes and a chapter quizzes. I'm going to create a module lab materials folder because this class has a lab associated with it, something that we'll talk about sometime later. And it's going to have a pre-lab materials folder, a lab handout instruction sheet, and a lab report link for an assignment. And then finally, I'm going to round out the course content with a module discussion, a module assignment, a lecture exam, and a lab exam. Now, in this particular video, we're not going to cover how to do all of these things. That is to say, we're not going to actually make the assignment or make the exams. We will be doing those in subsequent lectures, but I'm going to outline this in the course content, and we're going to organize it. Okay, so let's go back to our Blackboard site. We are now in the course content folder, and we're going to build our modules or our units here within this course content. So first thing I need to do is think about the organization of my class. I break my course up into 5 units or 5 modules, and so I'm going to create 5 module folders. And that is how the students will experience each module. There'll be a folder with all of the contents for that particular module within that folder. So let's start by building a folder. And I'm going to build a content folder and call it Module 1. I can also add text like chapters that this module will cover. I'm going to wait on that for the moment. We'll come back to that later in this particular video. I also want to go down here and add any of the options that I want. I want to permit students to see this content, and I'm not really worried about tracking the number of views. So I'm just going to hit submit, and it's going to make Module 1. So I'm going to go into Module 1 and build the items that we talked about just a few moments ago. I'm going to go into Module 1, and I'm going to start by creating my outline, if you will, with folders and items. And so if you'll recall, the very first thing on my list was to make a module learning guide, and I'm going to create an item, and this is going to be my module learning guide, and this is where I'm going to add some schedule, and now we'll come back to that. We'll build this one in this video. But let's go ahead and submit, I've got an item here for a module learning guide. I need a folder for module lecture materials folder. So I'm going to create a content folder. I'm going to do a module lecture materials folder. I'm also going to need a lab materials folder. I'll do the same thing here. Alright, let's go ahead and hit submit, and we've got a couple more things to add. I'm going to add a couple of, or a few placeholders here. And so I'm going to have to replace them later, but I want to make sure that when I'm looking at each module down the road that I have the same outline in each module. And so it reminds me of what I need to add. So I'm going to add a module discussion. I'm going to add a module assignment. I'm just using items. I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to have to replace those. But you'll see why here in a moment why I'm doing this is because I'm creating an outline that I'm going to then copy to my other modules. And let's do module lecture exam and module lab exam. Okay, so we have our outline now. Actually, I have to go into my folders here, the module lecture materials, and I'm going to go inside of that. I'm going to create another item. It's going to be called my chapter notes / lectures. I'm going to create a second item that is chapter quizzes. I'm going to go back out to module 1. I'm going to go into the module lab materials folder. In the module lab materials, I have a folder for pre-lab materials. I'm going to create another folder here. So it's going to be called pre-lab materials. Probably just one word here. I'm going to add an item of lab handout. And I'm going to add a last item of a lab report. Okay, so just so we're clear, things like a lab report is an assignment, and this is actually currently not an assignment, but I'm just creating a placeholder for it. And so when I go back to module 1, I have my outline for this module lined up, and then within the folders there's also placeholders there too. And so this is what I want to build. This is what I'm going to add stuff to these items or replace them with the proper assignments and or exams or lectures. And so we'll do that in subsequent videos, although we'll build a little bit of it here. But I want to show you now what I've done and why this can be useful. If I go back out to course content, and I can click on course content in both places, you can see I have module 1. And we've just set up the outline for module 1. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this folder, and I'm going to get you to this page. You do not need to change the destination course unless you're copying this to another course. I'm going to go to the destination folder. When I click on browse, it's going to give you this pop-out window, and you can see that I have class information, syllabus, and here's the course content. I'm just going to click on course content. And what it's going to do is going to copy this entire folder and add it into course content. And you can leave all of these options alone. Click submit. And see now I have a copy of this. And if I go into that second copy, you will see I have all of the outline there. I'm going to do that a couple more times. I'll do it one more time and then I'll pause and do the other one. So I'm going to copy again. I'm going to click now course content again. Submit. And it's as easy as that. And so what I'm going to do now is pause for a moment, and then I will have the rest of the folders up. Alright, so we're back, and I have added the different modules all the way through Module 5. And you notice I've also added some text to the folder. And just a reminder, what I did to add that text, I went to Edit. I could change the folder name here, and then in the text box I can add text. In this case I wanted to add information about what chapters are found in each one of the module folders. So I'm just going to hit Submit back here, and so for instance I want to actually edit Module 1 here quickly because I forgot to highlight or bold the Chapter 19 here, so I'm just going to, if I didn't let it run away from me, go back up. I've got it selected, click bold, and that's it. Okay, so I have created a description for each of my modules, and I like the way it looks. Now, it's likely that you're halfway through the semester, and so you don't need to go and worry about building your modules that you've already covered in class. And so in this case, I'm going to just make unavailable. And I can make this unavailable in a couple of different ways. I can go to Edit, and I can change as I scroll down. I can, under Standard Option, permit users to view this content. I can click on No. And what it's going to do is going to gray out the folder, and you'll see that it is hidden from students. I can also do a shortcut and click on the drop-down menu and just go to Make Unavailable, and that will gray it out as well. So the students will not see that, and we're not going to worry about those. We're not going to build them because we don't need to. In fact, I am going to focus on starting with Module 4. And so I'm going to make Module 3 unavailable. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to work on Module 4 because this is where my class is going to pick up when they start classes again online. And so that's what we'll do now. We are going to add a little bit more information, for instance, in each of these folders. And I'm going to first modify this module learning guide. If you'll recall from our class information, we go here and we look at the syllabus, the schedule, and the grading criteria. Part of the reason for creating such a detailed lecture and lab schedule is that I can use this in my modules just as a little reminder of what's due and when it's due and what the students are expecting to do that particular week. And so let's say I'm working on Module 4. I'm going to go into this, I'm going to edit this. I'm not actually going to edit, I'm going to go into Edit so I can copy. Part of the problem, and this is one of those things that you just learn with using Blackboard, if I just come in here and copy this to paste somewhere else, it also picks up a little bit of extra code that sometimes can mess with the formatting. It can create kind of this white background in some places. It works perfectly fine, but sometimes it bothers me a little bit. So I will go to the HTML and I will just copy this. It looks like a lot of nonsense, I get that, but I'm just going to highlight all of this. It's a lot because it's a table. I'm going to copy. I'm going to Control-C, copy that. I'm going to cancel out. I'm going to cancel out of this. I don't need to modify this. I am going to go to my course content though. I'm going to go to Module 4, and I'm going to edit my module learning guide. I'm going to go in here to the HTML button. I'm going to paste, Control-V, hit update. Now it's a long schedule, and I don't need to show this whole schedule. In fact, I really just want to show Module 4. So I'm going to eliminate Module 3 off here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to delete row. It still gave me this. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go down here to Module 5. I'm going to delete this material too. Okay, and so if I did this right, basically the students, when they come into Module 4, they have a little schedule here for just Module 4. I like to have these reminders in several places. We're going to see a little bit later when we add assignments that they're going to have 3 places to check due dates. They're going to find it in the class information under the schedule. They're going to find it at the header of each of their module folders, and they're going to be able to check the calendar for due dates. And so this is in my experience, students really like this, not having to try to figure out when something is due or what they're doing at a particular time. Okay, so I've got my module learning guide here. I can modify this in however I want, but in this learning guide, they know which sections of a chapter to read. They know what labs we're going to do during this week. They know what they're expected to do during this time, when it's due, and how many points these are worth. And so this is truly a learning guide for them because it tells them what to look at, what to study, and when they need to know that material by. Alright, the rest of this we're going to build because I need to add a discussion here, I need to add an assignment, I need to add some exams here as well, and we're going to have to do those in separate videos because that's going to take a separate video to go over the process of how to add a discussion and how to add an assignment and an exam. I will also talk about adding notes in here. I believe this is going to be our next chapter. We're going to talk about building and adding notes, and anyway, we'll get to that, but right now we have a nice outline to hang our information on. I will update a few things between now and the next lecture. I'll get Module 5 ready as well so that we can start to see a course that's going to start to look like it's available or ready for the students to start with. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you in the next chapter.